Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got two questions, both for Dr. Supiano. I've had a bill out there called the Promising Pathways Act, and it's for diseases just like Alzheimer's, ALS, and we spent so much money over the years, I think sevenfold over recent times on Alzheimer's. It's had one of the highest failure rates of any ailment and attempts to try to get something to work. I think you talked about earlier, there's a lot of stuff in the pipeline that looks promising. Does it make sense on like ALS, Alzheimer's, that we try to pick up the pace for the folks that are in the clinical trials, especially where there is, signs of promise that you're making some headway, and do it a little differently than what you would do on something that has effective therapies out there, looking for new or refining. So you think that would make sense with Alzheimer's specifically to try to have a different paradigm for getting some of these promising therapies to the marketplace to help folks that have no other options?
So yes, thank you, Senator Braun. I agree with you that given the devastating effects of Alzheimer's disease in particular, that anything we can do to speed the development and implementation of disease-modifying therapies will pay dividends. So and in addition to that, as you pointed out, I believe that the timing is right. Given the investment that's been made in the last several years in these basic understandings of Alzheimer's disease, and as you point out, ALS. Investigators here, my colleague in the Department of Neurology, the chair of the department, Dr. Stefan Pulst, has just recently identified a very promising therapy for ALS that you may be familiar with. So yes, based on these medical advances, I think the time is now right to be able to move this forward.
Would you and others in the field be willing to have a discussion with the FDA, who would have to be behind that idea? Because in my attempts to do so, you generally get interest in it, and then it goes back to the paradigm of that normal format and sequence. And I'm okay with that, other than in places where you have no other options. Is that something you'd be willing to engage with them on?
Yes, Senator Braun, and many of us in the geriatric research community have been closely working with the FDA, and not only in this area, but in others. And the regulatory aspects of therapies like this, as it relates to older individuals, are really important. It is all the more important to make sure that older adults are included in the trials that are being done so that we can generalize the results. So this communication with the FDA is important, and yes, we would love to partner with you to advance that area.
Very good. My second question would be on any disease, rather than treating it, ideally we'd love to prevent it. And I know that there are kind of related discussions on cardiovascular issues, even depression on the mental health side of things. Do you think eventually we're going to find a way to prevent it? Or do you think resources should be put into therapies to treat it? And obviously, I think we'd probably want to do both. I'd love your opinion on what you think might be the best placement of our resources currently when it's been so elusive on either one of them.
So you're correct, Senator Braun. We need both. The disease-modifying therapy advances, as we just discussed, are critical. I will point out, though, that we do now have evidence basis that much of Alzheimer's disease and related dementias can be effectively prevented. The BOLD initiative that I mentioned, the public health initiative on dementia risk reduction, has been reviewing what have been identified as 12 potentially modifiable risk factors. Most of these are lifestyle effects. We've already talked about some of them: obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, poor nutrition, limited education, and down the list. We know that those are effective strategies. The Lancet Commission, in their report from last year, suggested that attending to those 12 modifiable risk factors would prevent 40% of Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. So my point would be that we know what these strategies are. We need to better implement them. We need to make sure that they're being addressed across health disparities. As I responded to Senator Scott's question earlier, the need to address the cardiovascular risk factors in areas of the country where these are extremely high. So we do know what's effective. We just need to invest in public health measures now that will help us do better to modify those risk factors. Prevention, I think, is worth an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure, I gather.
Yep. Well, very good. Thank you so much.